Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So right now we are carrying on to break down every single new node combination per class in upcoming Cavalier difficulty quests. So far I have already done 4 of them. We have mutant and mystic ones left. So let's get on checking out what the mutant has in store for us. And then we're gonna go over all of the mutant champions in the game, check out what's there, and some alternative options to deal with these quests as well. So we go in these new Cavalier difficulty adventures prepared. Either way, the first note, healing factor. Each hit in the special attack of an attacking mutant champion has a 30% chance to grant them a passive regeneration healing 2% of their base health over 10 seconds. This chance is increased to 70% if the attacker has a prowess buff or passive. Now, it's a very tiny region, but it's important to note that it doesn't state here that it doesn't stack. So if you have multi-hit special attacks and you have a prowess buff, there is a good chance you would be getting multitudes of these. So hopefully they do stack, and hopefully that actually adds together to a very meaningful regeneration effect. Right, so Relentless Mutation. Mutant attackers gain an indefinite passive fury, increasing attack rating by 35% every time they gain a regeneration buff or passive. Max stacks 10. So that's fairly straightforward. Trigger a regen on a mutant, either with their own abilities or with the node above, and you gain a fury. That's quite potent. And the last one, Just a Scratch. Every time the defender is struck, they have a 20% chance to passively regenerate 90% of the damage received over 0.7 seconds. This will not trigger if the defender's regeneration rate is inverted or if the attacker is under effect of a regeneration buff or passive. So basically, as long as you have a regen of your own, your opponents will not heal anything, or if you are inverting the regeneration rate, then it will not trigger anything either. But as a default scenario, they have 20% chance to regenerate a ton of health. However, this node combination ultimately is very inclusive. You can use literally anyone, because keep in mind it's only 20% chance to possibly regenerate 90% of the damage. So it's a good chance not going to trigger. So effectively, you can kind of look at it that any champion will more or less maintain about 80% of their damage. So I can literally bring in anyone, which is kind of fair enough. There is not too much to deal with compared to any of the other class buffs, because other classes you get more meaningful penalties for most part. Like skill 1, opponents are going to be evading 50% of the time. Science 1, they're going to be poisoning you and whatever not. This is quite similar to what we went over with the tech class already, but just to kind of drill this entire point home, let's check out what will be the best options. But keep in mind that this is definitely going to be the class where you can use other sets of champions the easiest. So let's jump in onto May right now. We're going to swap from skill to mutants. I should have done this before video, but let's start. So Apocalypse. Well, Apocalypse is going to be actually quite cool because he has prowess active all the time, basically. And if you have done any fights with other champions previously, he's going to start the fight with passive regeneration as well. So Apocalypse is going to be doing incredibly well. Archangel doesn't have the regeneration, but you're heal blocking the opponents anyways. Now the question is whether you will be able to access those furies easily, and unfortunately the answer there is no. But Archangel still does great amount of damage by himself, so I still think he's going to be a fantastic option. It's just that it's not going to be too easy for him to benefit from this node. Now Beast does not trigger regenerations. He has regeneration, but I don't think it counts as a buff or passive. Same as Bishop, he has regen abilities, but I don't think it counts as a buff or passive. But he can get prowesses, can't he? Either way, now we're gonna have Cable. Cable has a chance to trigger regeneration, so that could work, but again, it's not the most frequent one. Colossus effectively has absolutely nothing to interact with this node by himself. Neither does either of the Cyclops or either of the Deadpools over here. Neither does Domino, so it doesn't look too great, to be honest, because, yeah, unless you have those promises or solid region buffs, you're not going to benefit from it. But now we have Gambit, Emma Frost, and Goldpool, all of whom have access to promise buffs, and in case of Goldpool, also regeneration. So these will be viable options. Havoc definitely has promise. Iceman not really. Jubilee will likely be very interesting option because obviously you get prowess extremely easily there. Magneto, well, Magneto has a ton of prowess, both of them. Mr. Sinister does not really do anything for these nodes, neither does Namor, neither does Nightcrawler. Old Man Logan has a regeneration every 15 seconds, so that kind of counts there. Oh, Namor, I think, could potentially count as well every time he throws a special attack. Omega Red, not really. Platinum Pool, don't know enough about him. Now, Professor X spams special attacks and has promises, so he's going to be great for it. But surprisingly large amount of mutant champions actually do not by themselves have access to promise or regeneration quite easily. Obviously, we have the X-23 and Wolverine and Weapon X if you do have him. But ultimately, it's also important to remember that any champion made Horseman of Apocalypse has a prowess buff active, so you're going to have much higher chance to trigger that regeneration. And even if you do not have access to prowess buffs, if you are able to spam special attacks, there's still going to be fairly decent chance that you will get those fury buffs. For instance, Rogue, you can spam level 2s, and even though you do not have prowess active, and you will not have that 70% chance, you will have the lower 30% chance, you'll still hit it fair amount of time. So ultimately, I do think that mutant buff will give you quite decent and interesting options. Again, considering that you can use Captain America Infinity War synergy with Storm, and any mutant is going to have prowess effect by default. Considering that you can make any mutant a Horseman of Apocalypse, and then they will have a prowess effect by default. There is a relatively decent chunk who access regeneration by themselves or have that prowess. And most importantly, because nothing really too bad happens if you don't. For example, you can just bring in, let's say, Carnage, right? If you run Despair, you're going to be putting in a bunch of debuffs on opponent. They're not going to be healing much, and when they do, it's only like 20% of chance for it to trigger, is what I mean. And when it does trigger, there is not going to be a whole lot of healing that they will be doing if you're running Despair. So overall, I think that the mutant node is quite decent. I don't think it's kind of perfect because we just went over, but thankfully there is that overall 30% chance on every hit of special attack to trigger that regen. If it would definitely require for prowess buff to be present and active, I don't think I'd like it too much. But since you can trigger those passive regen buffs even without having a prowess buff, I think it will just be about good enough. I look at it as kind of a better version of a tech one, as I mentioned before, where you overall definitely have more options than you did there. And yeah, that is the mutant class. I doubt that anybody really is gonna have too much problems with the mutants compared to the nodes and the, well, class champions to skill, for instance. Skill seems to be significantly worse node set for a class that's significantly worse overall. So yeah, I don't think too many people would struggle with mutants as is. But we'll see when it actually comes live. I'm, for one, quite eager to see how this works. But all in all, I definitely look forward to trying to have a bit of fun in this one. I also have a very interesting Apocalypse Horseman video coming up. Hopefully you guys will like that. But yeah, that is it for this one. I only have one class left, which is Mystic, which I'm going to get to in a moment. As always, let me know if I missed out anything, or perhaps there's something you want to suggest for me I should try out when these buffs do go live. Other than that, you guys are awesome, and I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information